Hi, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I'm unable to share my screen. The audio is disabled by Zoom automatically, and I don't know how to put it back on.
I can share the screen if you want. We can code that.
Okay, cool.
That works. Hold on. I want the wall to see what I'm. Wait.
Yeah, it's working.
Perfect.
Thanks, Naveen.
Not a problem.
Okay,
I want
okay,
to. So you let me know where you want me to stop, and I'll stop.
Sorry?
I said you let me know where you want to scroll down.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. The agenda is pretty short, so I guess let's start. Yeah, welcome everyone to the Scorecard Biweekly meeting, 2nd of June. If you haven't already done so, please add your name to the list of attendees. Is there anyone today who's new to this meeting and would like to say hi or where they come from?
Yeah, so hi everyone. This is Shripad Nargada. I'm a senior technical staff member at IBM Research. I'm leading some initiatives around supply chain security, and I'm a big fan of Scorecard. I've been using it for a while, and I would like to share some work that I've been doing and see how it aligns with Scorecard. So yeah, hi.
Yeah, welcome, and great to have you here.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who's new to the meeting?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Sebastian Crane. I'm coming from the SPDX angle with software bill of materials as a focus, but I'm intrigued to see what this working group is all about.
Cool. Welcome, Sebastian.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I've been working with Shripad. I'm also with IBM. I'm a security engineer, and yeah, I attended last meeting, but I was just a lurker. I didn't say anything, so welcome.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I guess that's it then. So cool. Well, great to have more people on board. I think so. I think you know this meeting is about Scorecard, and I think most of you have heard about Scorecards. We typically discuss, technical problems, project updates, and directions about where we want the Scorecard project to move forward to. So that's kind of what we do in this meeting. I think let's proceed with the announcement. Jeff, do you want to say a few words on what you wrote? And then I think after that, we can let Shripad talk about the work that he wants to talk about.
Yeah, just quick updates, not discussion items. Naveen, if you can click on the first one, they're both there on the README. So All-Star has a couple new features for configuration. The first one here is that you can put org level config. You can put repo level config in the org centralized repository if you create a subdirectory with the repo name. And the second one here is that you can also have a central config, and then in an org level config, like if you have multiple orgs, you can have them all point to one central config by using this base config option. So just some two functional changes there, or functional additions.
Cool. Any question for Jeff? All right, no questions. So I added a point on the Scorecard action release. We released last week, version 1.1.0. The main functionality we added was the support for the GitHub token, which is the ephemeral token that GitHub Workflows can run with. This way, users don't need to create a PAT, an authentication token. This was a request from many of the users, so we added support for this. It comes with a caveat, which is that the branch protection check doesn't work with this token, and this is something that GitHub is aware of, and they're trying to fix it on their side. So as soon as they fix it, we'll have support. We can add support back for the branch protection settings.
Is there anything to say about the 4.30, 4.31 announcement? I know that's new since last time.
I think this is just the release we made with a bunch of fixes, and that's what we use in the action release.
Cool.
So I think those are the changes. I don't know, Naveen, Azim, are there important changes?
Yeah, there are some, obviously there's some breaking changes. Like we are stopping the old JSON format, and that's in the release notes to say warning, those are breaking changes. But that's one critical thing people are looking at. The V1 JSON format is out, and that's not being supported going forward. And it was already mentioned during the V2, if I'm not wrong. So that's one thing that's there.
Cool, thanks.
All right, maybe another announcement that I forgot to write down in the notes is that we have someone interning at Google who is going to be working on a way to run Scorecard on the dependencies of a project. We don't have a design doc yet. We will share it once we have it. I think the idea right now is to add support inside the Scorecard action. And when there is a pull request from Dependabot, RenovateBot, or any pull request that changes one of the dependencies, we would be able to show the user the Scorecard results for that dependency, so they can learn and get used to seeing the results and maybe take decision based on the results.
So I have a question on this. So I know the design doc needs to come in, but the general overview, is it going to be using BigQuery to fetch the data, or like where is the direction for that specifically for that repository, like for that? And we don't have commit SHAs in our scorecard for those specific ones. How is that going to go pull that specific version or feature of the dependency?
Yeah, great question. So another problem there is also like the mapping between a package name to a project repository.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to keep it simple for the first iteration, which is we are just going to get the package names and maybe focus on Golang. And then we're going to pull BigQuery data ahead. So just show the latest results for the project.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who update tend to use some of the most recent versions anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's the plan, to keep it simple, and over time when we have better support for commit version, we'll try to add that.
And also, I know I'm jumping ahead. Why keep it part of scorecard action? Because now that ties with the scorecard release. So if we have to make any changes, this would be like, I'm just talking like how GitHub did. They have the dependency review as a separate action and dependency feature as a separate one. So now they can have independent releases and don't have to step on each other. Take example, if there's a seg fault or any of that, then we need to release this and cause problems to the other one. So is there a specific reason to keep it within the scorecard action? Can it be like how CodeQL has multiple actions within the same repository? I'm not saying that we need to create another repository. Can we have another action within the scorecard actions repository so we can have those releases go separately and still don't have to step on each other?
So I guess this is still to be discussed, right? I'm just gonna say what I have in mind, and I guess everyone else can chime in. I think the idea of using scorecard action is that in terms of usability for users, it's just a single dependency. And so once, like we have already 1,000 projects that use scorecard. So if we add support, they will automatically see the changes. I think even if you had 2 different actions, if a user wants to have both, either way, they'll have to update when you update.
Sure.
So from their point of view, I think having one is simpler. Well, that's kind of my point of view right now, but like.
Sure. So can I, sorry, I don't mean to interject. Instead of doing a design doc, can we just write down whatever we discuss right now? Can there be just a GitHub issue so it's easier to discuss over there, at least asynchronously, like so that we don't have to like somebody works a design doc and then don't even know what features we're going to talk about that?
Yeah, I think by design doc, I meant mostly like 1 page and
Sure.
then put it in an issue or a discussion. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll definitely do this.
Okay, cool.
Right now we don't have anything, so as soon as we have some like rough ideas about where the project can go and like what is the first step, I think we'll create an issue. I think like maybe next week. Does that sound good?
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about this project? Okay, so if there's no more questions, let's move on to the open issues. I think Shripad, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And this, I mean, I don't know about, I need to read more about this particular project that you're talking about, but it sounds pretty related to what I'm going to share. So let me see how I can share this.
I want to stop my share, so Shripad, you can probably share the screen.
Okay. Yeah. Do you see the PPT presentation? Okay, so this is a project gauge, right? So it's just the name that I gave. It's around recommendation for OSS dependency. And before I start, so this is open source. It's available. Chat. Oh, yeah, so there. So again, the way it started, and every project starts somewhere, right? So it started with earlier this year, we had this, everyone knows this NPM, malicious NPM packages with colors and flickers that break a lot of applications. And that's when essentially we started to check, right? Okay, if there was a malicious maintainer who was able to push some changes, why did I ended up automatically updating my dependency? How did I had no way to basically check before updating, had any indications of those? And yes, we had a lot of discussions that the dependencies were not pinned to specific versions and everything. But even if the dependencies were pinned, did I had all the tools and all the basically data available to make some informed decision? And the answer is there is no control way to update dependency versions, right? When I want to update from version X to version Y, I don't know if for all the changes, all the pull requests that went into this release are the best practice were followed, right? And what kinds and size of changes that went into this release. And we can go into detail like kinds and size and how we can determine it. But the bottom line is, can we identify and collect some indications of some bad behavior? And we can get some change insights. Like when we see any changes, can we get more insight into what kind of changes are this? And that's essentially when I started looking into this. And obviously the first start is okay, we can use Scorecard, which gives us essentially point in time evaluation of these practices, right? Like branch production is on, peer reviews are enabled. If I run it, I can pass those checks. But if I'm a really malicious maintainer, I can disable this. I can push some commit changes, enable them back, enable this setting back. And when I run it again, I get all these checks getting passed, right? So we just call it temporal loss because we are not essentially able to maintain this, capture this setting changes over this time period. And this is primarily because it's not limitation of scorecard. At GitHub or any SCM, they do not maintain this immutable record of setting changes. Like when I make a PR or when I commit something, I get immutable record, like this is a commit, but that is not available with GitHub for when I change the setting, right? There is no immutable record. That's one thing, but they provide the immutable record of the code changes or when I cut a release, when we make a new release. So that information is available. So can we use that information, right? And second is if we are executing these scans against the repository, we execute it against the main or head branch, right? And let's say we see this particular head branch has a vulnerability, but if I'm using maybe a previous version where the dependency is not captured, then that I cannot map that execution, that result to my application or my use of that particular repository or that particular package. Right? So in Cage, what basically I started looking into is into releases. Like when we have any package release, it has commits, it has pull requests. Every pull request, every commit, they have labels, they have link issues, they have their labels. We have contributors, reviewers, release notes, signatures, right? All this data is there available for us. And this is predictable data, immutable records. We have insights like who are top contributors, how many lines have been added or deleted. So can we curate this and provide some actionable insights? Like what changes are going into these releases, and that's essentially is the primary objective. So let me quickly show you the demo. So the way it can be run, essentially, you said this is the it's motivated by the scorecard. So it follows the similar notation. So it says it has two modes. One is the package, where it runs again individual packages, and another is SBOM, where it passes the SBOM and does the same thing for all the packages in the SBOM. Right. So for package, so this is the Flask package. Let's actually first we can run it against Scorecard. Right. So this is a Scorecard project. This is the repository where this particular project is hosted. If we run it, and this is the T is the tag, right? This is the current version that I'm using. So what Gauge is essentially in the backend is doing, it is making API queries to this particular repository and collecting all that information that I just mentioned. So in that, there were two challenges. One challenge primarily, right? So some of the information that we wanted to collect, it was not available through the GitHub API, like Go client. So we had to have the mix of GraphQL API and the Go client. So for instance, give me all the commits between these two PR or these two releases. That has to be a GraphQL query. So there's a mix of this. Hopefully it should finish fast. Let me show you the previous. No. Okay, so this is kind of report it produces, right? It says the current version is 4.2.0, the latest is this one. You are lagging by 2 releases because there are 2 releases between, or 21 days. Because some organizations, they have the requirement that they cannot lag behind more than 3 major versions or more than 180 days, right? And these are like federal clients that I had talked to. They said they have this requirement. And more importantly, if we can, it basically recommends this version. It says, okay, you can go and update to this version. There are 13 unique contributors who contributed for all the PRs that went into this particular release. They were reviewed by 6 unique reviewers. And in some cases, I found that the person who is making a pull request, he is the one who is reviewing or approving that particular change. So we check that these are non-peer reviewed changes. That means it is reviewed by the one who is not actually committing the change or making a pull request. And there are zombie commits. I mean, this is again for lack of better word. So these are commits that are made directly to the main branch without any pull request, right? So no pull request, nothing directly changed to the main branch. And then, as I said, this gives us some insight. And then what kinds of changes, right? So we look into, right now we are only looking to labels of pull requests, issues, associated issues, and everything. So that at least gives us some insight into what kind of changes are going into it, like some dependencies were changed, some GitHub actions, some bug fixes went into it. So this actually, I mean, this is again pretty naive data, but the idea essentially is to use this data and give some build some model that can give some actionable insights. So this essentially, again, when I run it against the one of the popular one, which is TensorFlow, right? It tells us that there are a lot of commits that went directly into the main branch. Then what kinds of changes went into it? What components were affected? So you can see it says core component has been changed. What kinds of changes went into it? Large, extra small. So these are the components that are changed. So now if I'm a user of this particular library, and when I see a new version, I say, okay, these are components that are changed, and should I update? I can make an informed decisions before updating, making an update. Right? Similarly, Flask, this is another very popular package, which says all the commits, they are going into the main branch, right? Without any pull request. But the kinds, they are like talk, testing, typing. So seems like, okay, right? These are changes to README, probably some typo, but still it gives us some indications, some flags, and some red warning to look into it more closely. So that's essentially that's essentially the first proposal, right? So can we have this support in Scorecard to score releases, right? So we can come up with some metric. Again, how part we can maybe take later, but first thing is, can we have this as in addition to scoring repository, we can also go and score individual releases and add this support and add some more checks there. And the second is, if you look into the overall OSS ecosystem, right, it has a lot of currencies, like it has source code, it has registries, it has catalogs, open source catalogs like Artifactory, Marketplace, Tekton, registries like OCI images, and even for source code, your application repo or Terraform or infrastructure repo or deployment manifest. Can we again extend the scope and add the checks for these kinds of artifacts? When we scan a repository, we see if there are Terraform. I mean, most of the checks are going to be common, like branch protections, reviewers, maintainers, but some of the specific, like in app repo, we look into OSS fuzzing vulnerabilities. So if we see there are Terraform or Ansible repository, we can use checks like tfsec to see if there are any Terraform scanning that needs to be done. If we see this is a Helm chart, there are Helm charts in the repo, we can automatically run some CIS checks against them. Similarly for OCI images. So that's essentially the second, that can we add a support for these different kinds of OSS artifact to Scorecard. Yeah, that's actually pretty much what I had. So any thoughts, any questions, any feedback?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation. That's super interesting. Who would like to start with a question?
I would like to, I have one, before I give comments, I have one question, Shripad, on that, on your zombie commits. So were you able to check whether your zombie commits match with what Scorecard is showing? Like you see there were 15 zombie commits, 122 zombie commits on your, like on Flask and TensorFlow. Were you able to, because usually this information is available within Scorecard, at least in the BigQuery, it clearly shows how many of them don't have the data. Were you able to confirm? It's not, we are doubting your answers. We want to make sure whether the data that we are pulling is also, like, we just want to make sure whether data is right. That's what I'm trying to check.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So how can I can definitely go and check it in the big data, is the big table,
The BigQuery,
this
so
information about, yeah, it is available.
Yeah, it's available. All the information is available, so should be able to get that. So that would be good point to check whether
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure if you're building something to get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing that I had that specifically.
Yeah, I'll go and check, maybe note of it.
I'm going to wait for others to talk about the rest of the stuff, but I do have some opinion on your proposal, but I'll let others talk before I go. Thanks. Great.
Yeah, sure.
Who else want to go next?
I can. I just had some questions. So on your second proposal, Shripad, could you just like reiterate what do you mean by different kinds of artifacts? I wasn't sure if it meant different repositories, like apart from GitHub, or are these something like, like we check Dockerfile today, but you also want to check some other types of artifacts on our GitHub repositories?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not different like GitHub, GitLab and everything, but even if we look into just GitHub, right? People are using it to host their application code, like the packages, also the infrastructure code, like Ansible, Terraform, or Crossplane, and all those new infrastructure code that is also being available on the GitHub repositories, and also Helm charts, right? If you look into all the operators and everything, so there are this. That's why I just call it currency. So different granularities or different types of artifacts are available. So when let's say someone gives me a repository, this is the repository, and can you rate this or score this for me? So we can look into some settings, like branch connections and everything. And now we can go and see what kinds of artifacts are. If it's application source code like .py and .go, we can just run the scorecard that we have today, right? If we see there are Terraform.tf or Ansible scripts, we can run different kinds of checks, like tfsec or others that look into whether there are any misconfigurations in the Terraform or missing configurations. If it's a deployment manifest, like Helm charts, so we can run some CI check like kubelinter or others. So we have contributed some checks to kubelinter, the CI that perform the CI checks. So then we can have the holistic assessment of repository, right? Which it can be any kind of repository. Similarly, images, is there a way we can basically score images also? So if I'm using some base image or any image, any open source image, right? Can I score it in some way?
Right. So, I'll try and answer this in two parts. So I think the images thing is a bit difficult for Scorecard, because I think it is hard to, because Scorecard is written with the assumption that we'll be running it on a repository, whether it's GitHub or a GitLab type of repository. So it's usually hard to have that mapping of like image versus code directly. So that's probably not a problem we are trying to solve right now. However, I do like the idea of doing the Terraform or the Ansible configs that you mentioned. I'm personally not too familiar with this, but the idea definitely fits very well with what Scorecard is trying to do. In fact, this is how we kind of extended our pin dependency check over time. So it started with Dockerfile, but now it also looks at other types of files. So it's overall on a very high level seems like a good fit, but definitely we should discuss more. So I would, for that part from my side, I would suggest let's open a GitHub issue on Scorecard. If you could just, let's say, have a very brief few line proposal, right? Like, let's say we start with the Terraform file, if that's what we want to start with. If you could just tell, what kind of checks or like what kind of security aspects you want to look for and how you want to implement it, maybe we can discuss it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll hold my thoughts on the other proposal for now, just in case anyone else wants to add their ideas.
Lauren, do you want to talk, or I have thoughts?
Oh, go ahead, Naveen.
All right. I'm going to talk on the second proposal that Sripad mentioned, same as he mentioned. Sripad, correct me if I'm wrong, this is almost like running security tools based on specific kind of code. Like if it's Terraform, I run TFSec. If it's Go code, GoSec tools. Like if Python, there's some Python XYZ tool, like different linters, security tools to run on different kind of code. Is that the proposal? Talking a 1,000-foot overview, not being specific.
Yeah, so not basically types of artifact, right? Like so we can even go like GoSec and everything.
Sure.
But more granular, we can look into like we categorize all those into application code. There are some checks which are common for application code and some checks which are common for like infrastructure, Terraform, Ansible. Because if you look into this category, they are managed and operated in a different ways, right? If you look into app code, it is changed a lot frequently than Ansible or Terraform code, right? So the idea is essentially to have this at a little more granular course level, not very granular, like if it is a Pi run this, if it is a Go run GoSec. Even we can go that level also. But in this one, I was just thinking if we can have it at least support for this at course level, like it's infrastructure repo, it's a deployment manifest repo, like in chart or
sure, right.
We can.
So let's assume if it's infrastructure repo, let's assume it's a mono repo with infrastructure, or let's keep it simple. If an infrastructure repo, let's suppose we found the Terraform files. So is your recommendation that we run TFSec on that repository along with existing scorecard checks and add that additional score into scorecard results so that if somebody's going to consume that, understands as a scorecard repository, we understand what these existing scores are, along with that, here are things that TFSec complained about.
Exactly. So if you look into today's, right, so when you see the scorecard, it runs, if you see it does OSS first, it does vulnerability scanning, it does the pinning whether dependencies are pinned or not. These are checked for application repos, right? They are probably not applicable for infrastructure repo like Terraform. So for them, there can be a different set of checks that can be done. So based on the type, we can apply different sets of checks on that, and some of the checks they are going to be common, right? Which are the repository setting checks. So yeah,
I like you mentioning that like fuzzing does not apply to like infrastructure repositories, Helm chart, or because lots of people are using different stuff. So initially I brought this thought process that, but then we decided sometime before scorecards scorecard was generally essentially wasn't in this space, but I'm more than happy. It's a good thought process, but we got to be specific as to where we draw a line. But I do agree to what Azim mentioned. We got to think about this. Thanks. And I'm going and I do have your thought process on the first one. I want to say I like the thought process. The release would certainly help if that can go into scorecard, but understanding what release is and how often that is run is an implementation detail that we got to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think how part we can maybe go later, like what exactly goes into it and this, but yeah, just in the first meeting, I just wanted to get this feedback, right? Like if it makes sense, and yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, Lauren.
Azim, do you want to? I think you had other questions.
So not too much. Sorry, go ahead.
No. So so you want me to open the issue for both the proposals, and then we can start on discussion there. I'll just put some details and.
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful. I definitely think the release one needs a bit more thought. It might, like you said, work well with Lauren's proposal to have a dependency check. But yeah, we can definitely think about how to do that. But the second one should be more simple, depending on what kind of security checks you want to add. So yeah, we can tackle that first.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I'll do that.
Okay, so something I wanted to add is I think some work that Azim and I are doing around the scorecard badges. We're going to be recording the scorecard results for every commit, so that you might be able to use that data to like for the release information.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know what the time frame is for this. I don't know, Azim, do you have any rough estimate?
Yeah, let's say we are hoping for the end of this quarter. So let's say conservatively, maybe like mid-July, we can aim for that. But yeah, we can think about how to, like, yeah, scorecard, like Lawrence says, scorecard does also support commit SHA based thing. So we have thought about the similar problem that you mentioned, that scorecard shouldn't only be running at head, but should also be able to look back. But we don't support versions, in the sense that we don't understand a release version. What we understand is a commit SHA. So if there's any way to map a release version to a commit SHA, I think it should be possible to look up the scorecard results for that SHA and figure it out.
Yeah, so I think in this one, what we're trying to do is we're trying to aggregate the all commits that goes into release, right? So if we have that support, that if we have scorecard results for individual SHA, we can basically say, okay, between these two releases, these are all the commits, then these are their scores, right? And then we can get some insights into it.
Right.
That's a fire hose. Sorry, I didn't mean to. That's a fire hose of all commits. Scorecard runs on a scheduled time frame, because it doesn't run between two releases. If that's what you're trying to do, Shripad.
No, we do not run it. We just say I want to basically have these I have two releases. These are commits. That's what we're doing right now. Like, we're not running scorecard on all the SHA, but we are saying between these two commits, these two releases, these are all the PRs that went into it. Let me get some insight into whether they were reviewed and what kinds of changes, and what were their labels. So we can get some more insights into what went into this release, right? So I can make, when I want to update, I can make more informed decisions whether I should be updating this to this version or not.
All right, I mean to interject Azim's conversation. Azim, go ahead.
No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we can discuss more. I think this definitely needs a bit more thought. We can discuss that offline. Thanks, Shripad.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. So there's thanks Shripad for the presentation. I hope we can work together, starting with the issue. That'd be very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I see someone added another point about dependencies with the toolchain. I'm not sure who added this. Navin?
Yeah, I added that. Sorry, I added that. Okay, I want to share my screen again just to make sure. Okay. The problem right now with Scorecard is like, right, specifically, I'm bringing these two up. Like, I'll open up these two issues. Scorecard, for people who don't know, Scorecard has two Go mods. One is for the main repo, another one is the tools repo. Tools repo is where we depend on a bunch of different tools. We want to pin by specific SHA so that we know which version of the tools that we're using. And that is growing really large, especially bringing cosign in. And I'm working on two PRs. One is there's a high vulnerability on GoToF, which we don't directly consume. It's our tools dependency that consumes. That's one problem. And I'm also working on another PR that is trying to upgrade to Go 1.18. And both these were blocked by the code dependency. And Jason was pretty cool. He immediately tried to fix this problem, but it is growing into the moment. Like, long story short, Co had a dependency with cosine, and cosine does not do semverse, and they broke their dependency. And that's why Co was broken. And we use Co and cosine, and that caused collisions for the problem. So I asked Jason, who right now works for who also works in a SIG store and in Co, to help me with this, and he went ahead and helped with that. But still, in spite of that, there are a lot of conflicts in dependencies. The two reasons that I'm bringing this up is we are trying to bring in the Scorecard action repository into Scorecard, and all of this is, I'm still having a hard time trying to solve this problem. Like, code dependencies are, especially we have replace options. I'm specifically talking about these replace options. I'm going to share the screen right now. I go to tools, my go.mod. There are a bunch of replace options purely for vulnerabilities that we do. And even if I remove these replace options, and if I try to get the main, like what Jason mentioned, still doesn't work. There's a bunch of errors and bunch of problems. Two issues in this, specifically reiterating that. One is I'm still working on it. I don't know how far I'm going to proceed to work on this. Second option is second concern is, if we bring in Scorecard action into this, like what Stephen mentioned, and Stephen also ran into the same problem, it's going to create a lot more issues. And I just want to bring this up over here so that we think about that. And I want to open up for others to have any conversation on this.
I mean, I'm okay holding off on like doing the merge. I mean, like, that's the concern here. I don't think that's a high priority item anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
is the merge the only concern, or yeah?
No. One is merge the concern. Another one is, my concern is bringing action in, because Go has these problems that is causing these dependency collisions that are having a lot more, and our maintenance of.
Yeah, when I said merge, I meant like the merge of Scorecard action and Scorecard.
Okay.
If that's a concern, like
it's a concern.
I think we can. Yeah, I'm okay holding off on that. Like I don't think that is high priority at all. At least from my side, I believe even Laurent is okay holding off on it. If Stephen, I don't think he's on the call right now, but if Stephen is interested in doing it, we can have a conversation with Stephen. But yeah, if that's the only concern, we can hold off on it.
Okay, you're right. That's my only concern, because that's my only concern. And probably again, to solve this, okay, especially to solve this particular, the Go tough and the Go 1.18, we might I'm gonna try and see if we can pull out Co, and we use Co only. Right now we use Co within our we install Co within the action. We probably have to do that, but I will work through that. But that's something that I just want to give an update on where I am right now on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think Navin, you answered my question. My question was more like, why do we need to compile Co ourselves? Like, why is it part of our go.sum? Because it's just something we need to pull the binary for, I guess.
Yes.
Like whatever we do. So why is it in our Go module?
Okay. Let me answer that question specifically. So we want to know what specific version of tools we do. Like, we want to be sure, and that's why we have these underscore import so that we know what version of the tools that we have, and we can have reproducible builds based on the version of the tools that we do. And that's why we have them, the tools, and that's why we have go.mod and go.sum, to answer your specific question. Now, you're similar to what you mentioned. If I pull out co and use only in the YAML file to install co, then if somebody clones Scorecard repo, have to figure out what version of code they need to install and how all of these things have to run. And our make files have co build, and we won't know what version. It'll all be documented, but not have automated way of figuring out. That's the problem.
Yeah, okay, got it. But so it doesn't interfere with the main scorecard Go mode. I guess that was my question. I misunderstood. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it doesn't. But I'm not able to upgrade any of these because these tools are colliding with each other so much. They're not straightforward. And there's a similar problem Stephen also ran into. Yeah, that's my concern. I don't have anything else. Sorry.
Any additional question for Naveen? Or advice?
Yeah, right. Or advice. Yes. Yeah, that'll be better.
Okay, I guess no advice for you. Okay. So I don't think we have any other items. So I guess we can conclude. Is there anyone with a question before we end? We have another 5 minutes.
Do you want to figure out the facilitator for the next week? Anyone wants to volunteer?
Yes. Yeah. So if there's no other question, let's decide who wants to be the facilitator for next time. Basically just doing what I did today. So who's interested?
It need not be any of the scorecard committers. It can be anybody else. So we want to give an opportunity to everybody to be. Somebody wants to.
Yeah, I can do that next week.
Cool. That's great, Shripad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's add Shripad as the next facilitator. And I think we can end on this, unless there are further questions. So I think we're done. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Thanks for the conversation, and see you all next week or in 2 weeks.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Sorry. Isn't next 2 weeks the
summit?
The summit? I'm just trying to think.
It could be. 2 weeks is what, 16 or 17?
Yeah.
No, I think the summit is on 21st or something.
Yeah, 21st. Yeah, right. Okay, we should probably plan to have, obviously, except then Azim, like, I know Azim can be able to make it, but we should probably have that in person, but we can still do that on the summit on the 16th. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. See ya.
Bye.